Welcome, everybody. My name is Corey Allen, and this, of course, is the Overton Report. Now listen, it is 2024. It is the most important year of our lives, honestly. The decisions that we make, the principles that we follow over the course of the next 365 days will decide the future of our nation, the most powerful nation in history, the most free nation in history. And a lot of this is coming from South Carolina, okay? The importance of this is coming down to South Carolina once again. Last century, came down to South Carolina, and here we are again, in a far different way. So the word of the day today, the fact of the matter is that because the things that we are about to do are so important, the steps that we take are equally important. Okay? And the word of the day in South Carolina right now is hypocrisy. I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to read something, and then I'm going to re-ask the question. And then we're going to get into the whys of it. Okay? So, here's the question. Should any county Republican Party or state Republican Party allow a far left pro-Joe Biden Democrat to come into their meetings and pontificate about why leftism is actually the best thing that we can do when it comes to judicial reform or things of that nature? Now, we've seen in cities all over the country what happens when you allow leftist and Democrat pro-Joe Biden solicitors and lawmakers to take control. We've seen the organized theft rings just running out of stores until those corporations close those stores. And then, of course, the Democrats' next step is to blame the corporations, not their own policies. We've seen leftist policies cause our dollar to become worthless. We've seen leftist policies cause our border to be almost non-existent. We've seen these things happen over and over again. Now, my question is, basically, it comes down to, is the Republican Party now bipartisan? Should it be bipartisan? Should Republicans in 2024 be allowing far left Joe Biden Democrats to come and pontificate to members, elected ECs, elected precinct presidents of the actual Republican Party in South Carolina? Should we allow that to happen? Should we? Well, let me read you this before you answer. My answer is no, by the way. I don't want to bury the lead there. This is South Carolina's first judicial circuit solicitor, David Pascoe, in late January of 2020, January 23rd of 2020. You remember 2020, right? Quote, "I've seen a lot of candidates come in and out of my circuit, Orangeburg, Dorchester, and Calhoun counties, to make their pitch to my constituents, but none like Joe Biden. I've known Joe personally for over a decade and followed his career for over 30 years. He's the most decent man I have ever met in American politics." Now, let me stop there. Hey, do y'all remember when Joe Biden gave the eulogy for a KKK recruiter named Robert Byrd? Do you remember that?
Also know that Robert C. Byrd was a parliamentary library, a keeper of the institution of the Senate, and he was the institution itself. But to me, and many people here today, like guys I see, Bill Bradley and Jim Sasser, who long left the Senate for greener pastures, for a lot of us, he was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide.
Do you remember when he said that he didn't want his children growing up with animals, and that was why he was in favor of segregating the bus lines? Do you remember that? That's the most decent man that South Carolina's solicitor, 1st District solicitor, has ever met. Okay? And it doesn't stop there. It says, he's the most decent man I've ever met in American politics. Joe is a hard-working public servant, but the way he delicately balances work and family is something that every public official should strive to accomplish. David Pascoe just said that Joe Biden showering with his own daughter inappropriately, those are her words, not mine, is something that every public official should strive for. Hunter Biden tossing his gun into a dumpster, buying hookers, 10% for the big man. It's all because Joe Biden's so decent and handles his family so well. And every public official should strive for that level of nepotism, cronyism, corruption, and quid pro quo. That's what David Pascoe said, not me. It was Jeff Davis's best friend, David Pascoe, who said this. Joe has been a role model of mine for many years, he continues. He's someone my sons look up to. Did David Pascoe's sons sniff children on camera? Is that what they look up to? I don't know. You tell me. And that's exactly what we so desperately need in the White House. Someone our children can look up to and who puts service above self. So that's David Pascoe, okay? A far-left Democrat, David Pascoe, who gave corporate entities total immunity, corporate entities who donate to Democrats and Republicans, if those corporate entities would help David Pascoe go after Republican elected officials while keeping the Democrats, the same Democrats that they also donated to, safe. So here's my question. If somebody in the South Carolina Republican Party decided to have this particular far-left Democrat come and speak to their county party, what would your reaction be? Would it be okay with you? Is David Pascoe and his belief system, his glowing endorsement of Joe Biden, is that something that you believe the Republican Party should encourage and give a platform to? I don't think so. But here we are. And what would you say if I told you that the singular group that attacks members of the Freedom Caucus by name as being not conservative enough and attacks any and everyone who ever questions what they're doing as being rhinos and fake conservatives and fake Republicans? What would you say if I told you that it's that group that has decided to invite this man to come and pontificate about far-left items, and it's not even the first time within the past couple of years? This is the second time in as many years that Jeff Davis and his iteration of MySCGOP have invited David Pascoe, a far-left Democrat who says that all public officials should take showers with their daughters, and who says, by admission, that all public officials should use their families, their sons, to make deals with foreign adversaries and entities because, again, he's the most decent man. Joe Biden is the most decent man that David Pascoe has ever met in politics. He's known him for a decade, my guys. And he's a role model. A role model and someone that his son should look up to. And the way he delicately balances Work and family is something that every public official should strive to accomplish. And also, sorry to bury the lead, but he's a close friend, David Pascoe, of Jeff Davis. They graduated together, and that's why it's okay for Jeff to invite this guy, apparently. But I really want you to push the cognitive dissonance off to the side just for a moment and ask yourself. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell your neighbor. You don't have to tell anyone else. But be honest with yourself in your own mind. This man, David Pascoe, or anyone who has said the things that he has said, what would your thought be if any group, any county party, or the state party for that matter, invited this man or a man who had said the same things in election year 2024 to come and speak and be heard in a Republican Party event, much less a business meeting? What would you say? So, an update in this story is that Joe Dill, who is the first vice chair, has come out with a statement, and he said that Yvonne Julian was lying. Now, I'm going to read it to you in full, and I'm going to have it scrolling on the screen so you can kind of keep up with it. Here's an important message from First Vice Chairman Joe Dill. Says, my response to GCRP chair's call to meeting email. False information is the title, which... First, I, Joe Dill, did not vote to approve the agenda because I disagree with a Democrat being chosen to advise Republicans on how to combat South Carolina judicial reform when we have plenty of available Republicans who can do the same. A Democrat is a Democrat is a Democrat, and they support Democrats. Simple. Simple but true. This Democrat speaker openly endorsed Joe Biden on January 23rd, 2020, as I told you. How can Greenville County Republican Party leaders who claim to be MAGA defenders allow a Democrat who votes against MAGA? I would go further than that. Not only votes against MAGA, but works all day, every day against any conservative principle or item in existence. That's his MO. Second, number two, I did not vote for the budget. Now let me clear this up. Yvonne Julian, the puppet chair, who works under the direct control of Jeff Davis, the clown. She sent out emails under official, letterhead, Greenville County Republican Party, claiming that the entire executive board, which would be like, state EC chair, first vice chair, second vice chair, third vice chair, et cetera, they voted unanimously for all of these things. And this guy, Joe Dill, the first vice chair, is combating that false lie, con, grift of a narrative. It says, second, I did not vote for the budget because it does not go into enough detail explaining the adjustments, and we do not spend enough money in getting Republicans elected, which is the main purpose of the local Republican County Party. It's supposed to be, that's true. It was said in the chair's email, quote, the 2024 budget was unanimously approved by the 9 members of the GCRP executive board, end quote. Not true. I was not in favor of the budget. Third, as for moving the 2024 budget approval to a special meeting on Thursday, February 8th, I voted against it. I believe that all executive committee members should be present in person on important business matters. The meeting's agenda title clearly states Greenville County Republican Party Business Meeting. That's the one that the far left Biden supporter, Biden's the most decent man I've ever met in my life, David Pascoe, is set to speak at. Okay? The meeting's agenda title clearly states Greenville County Republican Party Business Meeting. The speakers can be moved to a special town hall meeting. The chair's email stated, quote, "This decision to delay and hold a special meeting on budget approval was passed by a unanimous vote of the 9 members of the GCRP Executive Board." End quote. Again, not true. I did not approve, says Joe Dill, first vice chair of the Greenville County Republican Party. He goes on to say, "I disapprove of virtual Zoom meetings for several reasons, and I think these are very valid reasons. One of the reasons is that it is challenging to maintain fairness and impartiality. It's effortless to overlook when someone has a desire to speak, and it's convenient to ignore those who do not support the meeting's agenda. Very easy to kick them out. I've tried to get on Zoom calls that weren't even a part of this, and I was immediately kicked out. I mean, immediately. So yeah, they kick people out, and oh, you must be having some issues. We're going to vote without you. That's exactly why all these meetings are supposed to be in person and not on Zoom calls. That's really crazy. Creepy, to be honest. And it is convenient to ignore those who do not support the meeting's agenda. Additionally, it is harder for executive committee members to submit incidental motions that Robert's Rules of Order require to be available to voting members. It was said at a recent executive meeting that officers of the executive board should not violate each other's trust by speaking publicly against each other." Let me read that again. It was said at a recent executive meeting that officers of the executive board should not violate each other's trust by speaking publicly against each other. So basically, it was, if you disagree and we are able to beat you into submission, you're not allowed to say anything about it, even if it breaks the rules. Okay, that's the translation. Well, he continues, "I consider this recent email by the chair that the chair sent out a violation of my trust, and I will speak out publicly against misinformation that involves misleading the executive body on what I said or did not say, especially when it comes to voting matters. So I want it out on the record that the statements above are the truth and that I did not vote for or support these 3 items. I care for our county. That's why I am a Republican and want to get Republicans elected. I love you and appreciate what you all do. God bless you as we fight for America on the grassroots level." So, Joe Dill, so basically what happened is Yvonne Julian, under the direct control of Jeff Davis, i.e. MySCGOP, sent out emails saying that all of these items were unanimously voted on and voted in favor of by everyone. And then the first vice chair came out and said, "You're lying. That's not true. I did not support any of these items." So Yvonne Julian, and this doesn't... Anyway, Yvonne Julian comes out and sends an email, says, "I need to correct a proofreading error in my, quote, call to meeting notice letter from last night. The letter should have said, unanimous support for our 2024 budget only, not the other items. The notes and recollections of all board members except our first vice chair affirm this correction. I apologize for this error and thank you in advance for your understanding. We look forward to seeing everyone on Monday," as David Pascoe continues to denigrate all actual conservatives. She called him a liar. My question would be, what motivation at this point, years later, after Joe Dill obviously he's somebody who's involved in conservative and Republican politics. After all this time, seeing what happens to normal, everyday people who speak out, seeing their children called and threatened and intimidated, seeing their names dragged through the mud, seeing every rumor, every potentially questionable thing that they've ever done since the time they were 16 years old on, after seeing the way that Jeff Davis and the current iteration of MySCGOP attempts at every level to destroy the lives of anyone who even so much as questions them in good faith. After seeing all of that, what would the motivation be for Joe Dill to lie? To come out with a statement and say, the chair said all of this was unanimous. I'm telling you, none of it was unanimous. I didn't agree with any of it. And on top of that, they made it clear in that session that nobody was allowed to say anything negative about anyone else in the meeting, which is a warning to anyone: don't step out of line or else we will destroy you and we will call you a liar and we will use all of our email lists and all of our perceived power to destroy you and discredit you if you argue against us and what we decide. What is the motivation? What's the what could it possibly be? Joe Dill he just loves the abuse? No. Joe Dill was telling the truth. And Yvonne Julian was told to give him one and then claim he's lying about the other two. Do you see? That's their MO. Every time. That's an ongoing situation that we're going to have to talk about. And this video is so long. It's getting so long, but it's just, there's so much here. So listen, once again, is it okay for the Republican Party to be bipartisan, as Jeff Davis claims it should be in his interview with Charlie James the other day?
Thank you so much, JR. I appreciate you calling in. Jeff Davis is calling in from the Greenville County Republican Party. Jeff, what's the deal? You guys are having Democrats come talk to your group. What's going on, man?
Hey, Charlie, Jeff Davis here.
Yes, sir.
On Monday, and we invite everybody to come out and hear this. It's doors open at 6 p.m., Malden First Baptist Church. We start the meeting off at 7. You can kind of actually see how we work with the Greenville Republican Party. It should be a good meeting. Last time we had this discussion was 2 years ago on January 6th. We had about 600 people come out to hear what's going on with judicial reform and what the problem is with our judges and the lawyer legislators.
Right.
So I think you probably know Freedom Caucus. I mean, we've got two people coming to speak. One of them is solicitor David Pascoe, who indicted a whole bunch of corrupt politicians about 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
That's number one. He is a Democrat.
But wait a minute. But here's the thing, though. I mean, isn't there a good Republican that you can have to come speak on that? I mean, this is a guy that had an opportunity to also go after some of the corporate interests that were backing some of these people, but he didn't.
I've actually talked to him about that particular reason why he did go after him, but the only way you could get any money out of him was do one of those agreements. But we also have Kevin Brackett. He's a solicitor out of York County. He's a Republican, and their presentation is over the top. I saw it a couple weeks ago down in Lexington with the Lexington County Republican Party. You'd be shocked at what our judges are doing. And Charlie, I highly encourage you to come out and see it. And these people are fighting. They're working with Alan Wilson, who's a Republican, attorney general. And if Alan Wilson and David Pascoe are on the same page, we need to get everybody on the same page. So judicial reform is a huge issue. And I'm telling you, it is over the top. You'd be proud of it.
But a Democrat is a Democrat, Jeff. I mean, I'll be honest with the way that they've been acting. I mean, come on, why don't you get Wes Clymer up there to give a presentation about it?
Wes Clymer is working with Kevin Brackett, who is coming. He's the solicitor in Wes Clymer's district. David Pascoe, he actually, in fact, is a classmate of mine from the Citadel, class of 1989. He is a pro-life Democrat. Do you hear that? Do we want pro-life Democrats? Do we want to be working with them? We want to get them on our side. So that's what we're doing. But I'm sorry that he's the guy kind of leading the charge. Alan Wilson has picked it up. We got sheriffs and we got solicitors all around this state that are fighting for judicial reform finally starting. And you know where it started? Where this race started is because we in the Greenville County Republican Party had him come speak on January 6, 2022.
Do you know if David Pascoe is for James Smith as circuit court judge?
We're not, but I can tell you, I went to the legislative delegation meeting when James Smith came here back in October of last year, and every one of our Republican legislators, Freedom Caucus members including, were hobnobbing with him. But I'm going to tell you, judicial reform is a nonpartisan issue, and if we can get it through, I talk to lawyers and legislators all the time, say it'll never happen, but it's happening because we're working with the other side. I'll work with anybody that's going to fix our judicial system, and that's what we're working on doing. And if people are using you and using the fact that David Pascoe happens to be a Democrat, pro-life Democrat, out of the Low Country, and he's from Orangeburg down there. I mean, you're not going to get elected as a Republican in Orangeburg, let me assure you. But but he's fighting for judicial reform, and we're here to support it. We got Kevin Brackett. We've invited our own solicitor, Walt Wilkins. Walt has not responded. Walt did not come 2 years ago because he got in touch with somebody that had COVID, so he couldn't come. But Solicitor Wilkins right here in Greenville's been invited. We've invited all of them to come. We want them to come. And I will tell you one other thing. Representative Joe White, out of Newberry, Freedom Caucus member. Joe White was angry at me, and he'll tell you this story. He was angry at me for as chairman of the Greenville GOP, 2 years ago. He was angry at me for having Pascoe come speak. He was. What encouraged him to run for office? Hearing Pascoe's speech.
Well, we'll certainly ask him about that, and I appreciate you calling in, Jeff. Just want to correct you on one thing. Nobody uses me for anything, but I appreciate you calling in. Thank you, pal.
Love to talk to you.
Take care. We'll be right back.
Is it a coincidence that far left David Pascoe is a friend and in the graduating class of Jeff Davis? Is that why David Pascoe is there? Or is it because Jeff Davis, Yvonne Julian, and David Pascoe all have the same goal: to dismantle, disrupt, destroy, and neuter the Republican Party in South Carolina by any means necessary? You can't name a Saul Alinsky rule for radicals that this man and this group in its current iteration, because it used to be a good one until it was inherited by a grifter. I'm going to sue you.
Oh, we are going to sue you.
What?
Yeah, you think you can say our religion is a lie? We'll sue you, buddy.
You told me it was a lie.
Oh, now you're putting words in my mouth. You are so sued. You made me look stupid. I'm gonna sue you too.
Well, fine. Go ahead and sue me.
I will. I'll sue you in England. You are so sued, kid.
Well, go on then. Sue me.
We're going to.
Okay, good. Do it. I'm not scared of you. Sue me.
There is not a rule for radicals written by Saul Alinsky that this man and this group in its current iteration have not utilized effectively, to varying extents, against conservatives and Republicans in South Carolina. Whether it's the chair of the South Carolina Freedom Caucus, Adam Morgan, whether it's any given member of the Freedom Caucus in South Carolina, whether it's against any given elected Republican in South Carolina, there are two types of people that Jeff Davis and his iteration of MySCGOP have not attacked. Two types of people. One, Jeff Davis's friends. Two, Democrats, whether they're elected, whether they're Democrat activists, whether they're Democrat lobbyists. Those are the two. And I'm asking you, Republicans, conservatives, anybody in South Carolina with half of a brain, what sense does that make? In what world does somebody who claims to be the stalwart, the leader, the whatever the hell of conservatism never have a single bad word to say about a single South Carolina elected or activist Democrat. In what world does that make sense? And in what world did you ever expect, as a Republican, as a conservative, to follow somebody who has never gone after a single Democrat, but has only and always gone after conservative activists, Republicans, independent conservative media, Freedom Caucus members? Only ever. If that is your role model, if that is something you agree with, unfollow me. Get out. You're not a Republican. You're not a conservative, more importantly. You're not a liberty-minded individual, because if you don't have the wherewithal to understand, if somebody only attacks conservatives and never attacks liberals, only attacks Republicans, only attacks Freedom Caucus, never attacks the Communist Caucus, never attacks the Socialist Democrats, never attacks leftist activists, and that's your guy? That's your litmus test for conservatism? It is what it is, man. I mean, that makes you, look at me. That makes you not a conservative. That makes you gullible. Don't be gullible. Put grifters where they need to be placed. My name's Corey Allen. This is the Overton Report, and things are really going crazy.